What's up, music lovers? Thanks for clicking on my channel, and welcome to the 10th episode of a series I call Artists That Deserve More Love, where we take some time to appreciate musicians and bands that should really be getting talked about more. And these can be bands with careers lasting decades or artists with only 20 followers on Spotify. Whatever the case is, if you don't know about them, you're really missing out. And if you think this channel deserves more love, please subscribe, leave a like, drop a comment, all that YouTube stuff. Self-promotion out of the way, let's get into it. What if I told you that there was a band that had the brother of Randy Rhoads as the singer, Nick Menza before he joined Megadeth on drums. They went on several tours in the early 1980s and were based out of LA and had an entire EP here on YouTube? Well, that band exists and they're called Rhoads. Now, right off the bat, this is a band that never really got to experience its full potential. And if you're not a metalhead who loves to find obscure 1980s bands, this isn't going to be your thing. And while you could say that all that just kind of makes Rhoads a bit of a curiosity, you should still go check them out because on their one EP, there's so much raw talent that is clearly evident in their playing. It is so easy to see that if this band had come out a few years before they did, or if they had been based in England instead of LA and they were part of the new wave of British heavy metal, they could have been absolutely massive. The songwriting and production on their EP is very rough and clearly in the embryonic state of what they were growing into be. It is still just really amazing how mature and how wide of an array of influences this band had. And their songs do kind of feel like a cool mix of 1970s prog rock with early new wave of British heavy metal. At times there's a bit of a Queensryche vibe to them, given that they probably have a lot of the same influences. It's just so cool to listen to this recording and kind of imagine what this band could have done. So we go from one of the first bands that Nick Menza played with to, sadly, the last one he would play with. Ohm was formed by former Megadeth guitarist Chris Poland around 1999, and they are a instrumental jazz fusion power trio. And if you thought that Chris Poland's work in Megadeth was insane, which it is, just wait until you hear what he's doing when he has complete creative control over a project. Ohm's music is like a three-way brawl between the drums, bass, and guitar where they're all trying to kick the crap out of each other, but instead they come together to create a song and somehow end up working together well. A lot of times the bass and the guitar are playing completely contrasting melodic lines with each other, but that just makes it so much cooler. So I guess in addition to metal and jazz, you could say there's a bit of a Bach influence in their music. And Chris Poland really gets to show off with all these cool techniques that he was probably getting held back from doing when he was with Megadeth. Playing melodies or musical motifs where the whammy bar is crucial to how they sound, doing these really cool tapping passages, also playing in odd time signatures and tossing in some throat singing from time to time. My personal favorite album from them is their 2005 release, Circus of Sound, which may have one of the greatest song titles of all time with the track named System of a Clown. Some of my favorite songs from them are Pan's Plan, Point Omega, and The Black Hand. Their self-titled debut album is also fantastic and has this sort of alternative vibe that they never really recaptured on any of their other albums, at least in my opinion. So if you want to get into Ohm, that's my suggestion for where you could start. And so for our last artist, it doesn't quite have the sound you might expect when you hear Alex Lifeson from Rush is in a new band, but that doesn't matter because their sound is absolutely fantastic, and that is Envy of None. They've released 2 albums so far, their debut in 2022 and then their follow-up just about a month ago, and they are so cool because they're one of these bands that it's really difficult to actually describe their sound, you just have to hear it. I guess if I had to think of a way to describe their sound, you could say it's ambient synth pop, singer-songwriter rock. Maya Win is the singer for this band, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and she has such an amazing voice. She's also a great lyricist. That's where you can see the singer-songwriter influence in their music. In some ways her voice reminds me a bit of Sarah McLachlan or Enya, maybe even Joni Mitchell, while still being rock, but also pop. And like I said, Envy of None is really difficult to kind of put into one genre, but they are one of those bands that the second you hear them, they really grab you, which you can't always say for every musical artist, but Envy of None has that extra, I don't know, zazz, that X factor. And a big part of that, I think, is their instrumentation, which is just mind-boggling. There are so many vocal harmonies in their songs, and the guitars and the keyboards and the drums are all doing these really intricate things, but they never call attention to themselves. But even if you're just casually listening to them, they still have a lot of very pretty melodies that are easy to follow and hooks. So as a musician, Envy of None really satisfies both hemispheres of my brain. It's easy to listen to and memorable, and there's also a lot of really cool, intricate, and complicated stuff going on in it. Yeah, and me saying Hemispheres was not a mistake. Speaking of which, Alex's guitar work on these albums reminds me a lot of his guitar work on those 80s albums from Rush that people like to say are super keyboard driven, which they are, but when you go back and listen to them, you're like, wow, man, he's doing some really amazing stuff on the guitar in those albums, and that's kind of what he's doing here, where you might not consciously think of like, oh, that's a really cool guitar part, but go back and listen and really just take your time to pay attention to what he's doing, and you're like, wow, man, this is just amazing. Can a band with only 2 albums be one of your favorite bands? I mean, I don't know. Usually I like to, have multiple albums before I say, oh, this is one of my favorite bands, but Envy of None has definitely really grabbed my attention, and if they keep putting out stuff like this, yeah, I mean, they could become one of my favorite bands of all time. So there you go. There's a couple bands that, in my opinion, more people should go check out. But what about you? What do you think of these artists, and what are some bands out there that you think should be getting way more love than they currently have? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and get some cool music recommendations and just generally talk music with people. I also have an instrumental song out called Waking Giant that you might like, and there's a link down below if you want to check that out. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all of that YouTube stuff. I know it's a cliche to ask, but it really does help channels grow, especially super small ones like mine, so I appreciate it. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you at the next video.